Welcome to Caroline's Library, where we dive into the world of manga, anime, and more. Today we are talking about an absolute classic, Vinland Saga. We've got bloodthirsty Vikings, brutal battles, and heart-wrenching injustice. So let's get into it with a quick summary of the first couple of chapters in this series. The story begins on a battlefield that's being observed by a group of Viking mercenaries. Two Frankish tribes are at a deadlock, so the Vikings decide to team up with the aggressors, seeing an opportunity to shift the tide and claim some treasure. This is where we meet Thorfinn, a teenager and member of this Viking band who's ordered to share a message and negotiate the terms of their assistance with the aggressors. But Thorfinn expects his own personal reward for his help, because he's not interested in treasure. If he's going to join this battle, he demands a duel with the Viking leader Askeladd, the man responsible for murdering his father in cold blood. After Askeladd agrees to the duel on the condition that Thorfinn kills an enemy commander, Thorfinn delivers the message to the aggressors and jumps into the fray. But these are Vikings, who are not exactly known for being the most honorable people, so after helping to secure the win, they seize all of the treasure for themselves before making their way back to their homeland. Now that they're back in Denmark, it's time for Askeladd to hold up his end of the bargain. Because Thorfinn killed an enemy commander, it's time for their duel. But Thorfinn is still a young warrior, not quite capable of being able to take on a seasoned, cunning warrior. So after losing the duel, we skip back 10 years to get a better understanding of Thorfinn's childhood and what's led to his current situation. Alright, so with that story set up behind us, let's dive into what makes this manga series a must-read classic. And there's no better place to start than with our main character. Thorfinn has one of the best character arcs I've ever read. With the time skip back to his childhood, we see him as a jovial, naive child who has a loving, caring family. He's had a wholesome, safe life. But with his father's murder, we witness Thorfinn's life get turned upside down as he quickly learns just how brutal and cruel this world actually is. And this trauma warps him into a cold, angry person who's determined to avenge his father's death. So he's driven by one goal, one purpose, to get revenge. And he's willing to do whatever it takes to have that opportunity, even if it means living amongst his father's murderers. And this all-consuming motivation is what gives his life some semblance of meaning. It's become his identity, and has devolved him into a shell of his former self. And this deterioration is heart-wrenching because you realize what he's sacrificed by pursuing this path of revenge. His inner peace, his homeland, his remaining family. And with that, let's move on to one of the best written antagonists I've ever encountered, Askeladd. He is easily one of the most nuanced characters in manga. He's a cunning tactician, a skilled warrior, and oddly enough, a sort of father figure to Thorfinn. These two have been together for over 10 years. Askeladd has essentially raised him, and despite Thorfinn's goal of revenge, there's a kind of respect that's formed between the two of them. It may not be a healthy relationship, but there's some amount of admiration there. And as we learn about Askeladd's childhood and what he's been through, we get an understanding of just how complex he truly is, what he cares about, and what's been driving him all of these years. And we are introduced to this complicated, messy relationship between Thorfinn and Askeladd almost immediately. But the story really gets going when we meet Canute, a Danish prince who's been kidnapped, triggering a chain of events that pushes the plot along and expands this series beyond just a simple revenge story. Because at its core, Vinland Saga is set in 11th century Europe, as the Vikings are at war with England. And the mangaka beautifully and epically portrays this era's brutality with truly outstanding art as we experience bloody battles, cutthroat politics, unjust enslavement, and so much more. But right below the surface, we've got a deep, meaningful, philosophical question that guides the story. In an era of wars and Vikings, what does it mean to be a true warrior? This question was first asked by Thorfinn's father, and it's been nagging at him for years. What does he have to do to find the answer? And this question becomes a key focus as the manga shifts in tone around chapter 55, where it transitions from a story of revenge to a story of finding inner peace. For me, this change in tone was brilliant, realistic, and gut-wrenching, as Thorfinn becomes a more complex, haunted man, searching for a purpose beyond revenge, where he may finally discover the answer to the question, what does it mean to be a true warrior? So we've got incredible characters, an intense storyline, philosophical questions, and outstanding art. This manga beautifully balances epic violence alongside intimate character moments, and Thorfinn's journey is emotional and gripping. But there is one tiny issue I have with this story. Emphasis on tiny. And it's about Canute's character development. When we first meet him, he comes across as a weak, scared leader who does not have the personality for his position. But apparently, it only takes one philosophical conversation with a pessimist to suddenly come out of your shell and rise to the challenge, because Canute is reborn as a strong, strategic, and astute leader. If only that's all it really took to make a true leader of men. Now, obviously, Canute needed to mature and embrace his position for the story to get going, but for it to happen in a single moment felt poorly done, especially when we see the level of detail that's put into other characters' personal growth. But that one complaint aside, Vinland Saga is a historically rich, brilliant, beautiful, and emotional manga series. Simply put, it's a must-read classic that I highly recommend, and luckily this series got a pretty great anime adaptation. But if you've already read or watched this series, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for popping on to watch this review, and until next time, happy reading!